The two most common faults with IBM PCs and XTs are exploding caps and broken drives. I've done some thinking lately, and I believe that I have found the perfect solution to fix these drives. It's simple and it's cheap, but I don't think anyone has tried this method yet. Let's give it a try today and see if I'm right. Since we are going to work on at least one unrestored IBM today, I need to start with an unboxing. While I open up this huge box, I'd like to say thank you to a viewer. I was already saving up for this thing here, but I was still a few months away from ordering it, when viewer Niels made a very generous donation on Ko-fi. So that's why it's on the bench today. Donations on Ko-fi and Patreon, and the support from my sponsor PCB is what makes this channel possible. So thank you guys for your support, I really appreciate it. Well, it seems to be really well packed, with tons of styrofoam. The manual is just a small leaflet, so I hope this thing is easy to use. And next up, we have a huge PCB holder. And this is the reason why I went with this model here, because I think it can preheat an entire motherboard. Then some more styrofoam. And a loose nut. Now that is not a good sign. And then even more styrofoam. Man, this thing is really well packed. Wow, that thing is huge. That is massive. And a temperature probe. A massive fuse. And a bunch of large bolts. Sorry about that lousy camera angle. My studio isn't large enough for boxes this big. I have to keep the camera this close to the bench. Now let's unwrap this. Before we continue, I'd like to say thank you to PCB for sponsoring this video. I have been using their PCBs for years now. This is just a few of the projects we have built on this channel. So head over to PCBWay.com and order some PCBs for your next project. Thank you PCBWay for supporting this channel. And get it out of this bag. Wow, that thing is big. Yeah, this should definitely be large enough for an entire motherboard. Let's check. Yeah, for sure. It will fit the entire 8-bit VP6 board. And this board, of course, is the reason why I went with this preheater. But that's not what we're going to fix today. Let's start with something simpler. And in a future video, we will fix this board too. Well, I don't know anything about this brand, but this screw here is loose. And same thing with the screw here. So they don't seem to check their work at the factory. But I got a really good deal on this preheater, so I don't mind fixing these screws. As long as it works and makes it possible for me to fix motherboards that I haven't been able to fix before, I'm more than happy. I'm starting to get a feel for this unpronounceable brand. This whole thing is completely skewed. So no wonder I got a good deal. Now this is hilarious. Check out this sticker here. QC passed. Yeah, right. Well, they clearly left the quality control to me. So let's have a peek inside and make sure nothing is loose. I think we need to remove the front panel first. Mains powered machine that generates heat and has loose screws. That's not a good start to a project. But hey, maybe it's interesting to see how it's made inside. Okay, I think the front panel should come off, at least partially now. Yep, my guess was right. With the front panel loose, I think we can lift the entire cover off by removing all of these screws on each side. Said and done. Now we can remove the screws at the back. Oh, there's actually a second quality sticker at the back here. That is hilarious. It's one of those golden ones that you would find on really expensive cameras back in the 80s and the 90s. If they were made in Japan. This one is clearly not made in Japan. We also have a holder for that huge fuse at the back here. And there's already a fuse installed. Okay, I'm just guessing here. I think we may be able to remove the cover now. Actually, no. So maybe we need to remove this large bolt here. Yes, I think we do. Yeah, something definitely came loose. Now let's try again. Yep, here comes the cover. Well, I don't know much about preheaters, so I just made a general check. All these connections are ceramic, and all the cables in the hot area here are sleeved. This dinky fan, however, that could be a problem, but we'll leave it like this for now. We can always install more fans. I cleaned out tons of these tiny pieces of styrofoam. Since it's going to get really toasty inside here, I think that's a wise thing to do. The PCB is fed with 9 volts from a transformer at the back here. The heater is controlled by an 80 mega 8L. Logic chips are from TI. And these caps are Cheng branded. I don't have any experience with Cheng, so I couldn't tell you if they are any good. Perhaps you do. In that case, share. The 9 volts from the transformer is also regulated down with 2 voltage regulators, presumably 5 and 3 volts. I also noticed that with the lid off, this heater is not skewed anymore. Oh, you're kidding me. This nut here is loose too. Well, the lid doesn't seem to be skewed either, so hopefully it was just the way it was installed. I'll tighten up this screw too, before we put the lid back on. About half of the screws in this heater will loose. So let's put that lid back on. The thread for the large bolt at the back here doesn't line up with the hole in the lid, so it must have been forced into place. Maybe that is why it was so skewed. The standoff inside is held in place with a bolt on this side too. So I'll loosen it up and see if I can reposition it. Okay, apparently it's also held in place with a screw here. I'll leave it loose like this for now, and we'll see if we can align it. Well, with the standoff loose, I can install the bolt, but this could be a problem when we tighten this bolt later. Okay, I installed all screws except for the front panel, but I left them all loose. It's still not skewed. Okay, as soon as I tighten up those screws, it's now skewed again. Well, that kind of sucks. And with the screws on both sides loose again, it's not skewed anymore. So how about if we cover the heater and put a heavy IBM on top and then tighten up all the screws. Hopefully the weight of the IBM is forcing the lid into position. And unfortunately no, that didn't work. So the lid just doesn't fit on the chassis. That kind of sucks. Now let's see what happens when we tighten up the bolt to the standoff. Yeah, totally sucks. Well, I guess I could return it. But the thing is, a professional preheater is 5 times the money. I don't do repairs for a living, so an upgrade is out of the question. The loose nut came from this bag here, apparently. It has 5 screws and 3 nuts. So I'm gonna have to check in that box and see if I can find another one of these. Yep, found it. It was loose in the box. So hopefully this bag is complete now. Well, there's nothing in the manual about this PCB holder, but I found a picture online. So at least we know these bolts should be installed in these holes here. And then the stand just sits on top of the preheater like this. Well, that probably works well enough. The probe obviously connects here. Oh, come on, this thing is loose too. I need to tighten up these screws here. Okay, let's try again. Okay, that's better. There are actually 2 probes on that connector. They are marked B and C. Okay, I grabbed a random motherboard and installed it in the PCB holder, and it sits really firmly. So this holder is going to be totally fine. To test the preheater, we need a broken motherboard, and I've got plenty of those. My notes on this machine said no boot, and I also think we have snatched one of the chips to repair another board. I have ordered a new chip, so we should be able to fix this machine now. Okay, let's see what we've got here. Well, we've got a loose hard drive cable here, and a bag of screws, and removed slot covers from the back. And then we have the second hard drive cable here. And then we have a rather unusual looking floppy controller. How about this guy here? Yeah, I've never seen a PCB with this look in any other IBM. It's sort of semi-transparent. It has some IBM number stamped on it, and a very long handwritten number here. Dates on the chips are 84 and 85. So I wonder what the deal is with this card here. Here's a better view. It's almost transparent, but not quite. Very strange. So let's pull the next card out. This is an MFM controller. Yeah, nothing unusual here. And the dates on the chips matches the other card. So let's pull the next card. I can already see it's some sort of graphics card. This is an original IBM CJ card with matching dates on the chips. And the next card is an expansion card. And it has a coin cell, so no leaky battery this week. I had enough of Varda, at least for now. Let's see what this card is. This card here is an AST 6-pack plus with all banks of RAM filled up. So this is a very nice card, and the dates on the chips matches too. So this card must have been installed when this machine was new. This is an excellent find. We'll have some fun with this card. This drive is actually not broken, but we've got plenty of broken drives, so no worries. On this side we have a 10 meg MFM drive. We don't really need to remove the hard drive to fix the motherboard, but I'm going to do some cleaning off camera, so I'm gonna go for a complete disassembly. We also need to check for refills in the power supply, of course. So let's pull that power supply out. I'm going to wash everything in warm soapy water. So the speaker has to go, because speakers don't like water. Okay, 2 more screws, and the board is ready to come out. This is a 64 to 256K board. Looks unusually clean, actually. Yeah, this board doesn't need any cleaning. We can start fixing it right away. And here's our missing chip. We'll reinstall it later. We've got a date, June of 1985. This security screw here is damaged. The security bit has a hole in the middle, and the security screw has a peg here that should line up with that hole. But I think someone has forced regular screwdriver into the screw here. So that also means someone has probably been inside this power supply. And the question is, of course, why? This power supply only had 2 security screws, and the rest are regular 1/4 inch bolt head. Okay, let's see what we will find inside here. Oh, we've got refills. But hey, these refills have been replaced. There are clear signs of exploding refills here on the PCB. Same thing with this refill inside here. But these guys are not damaged. So someone has repaired this power supply. So now I'm not sure if I should leave them in. I don't really know if refills were improved, or if these new caps are just as bad as the old ones. What do you guys think? Should we leave them in or replace them? I'm gonna have to do some thinking. I'm pretty sure I have some in stock. Okay, I spent some time trying out the PCB holder, and I have to say it works really well. The only annoying thing is that these rails here can't be easily removed. But that's a really minor issue. The PCB sits very firmly in here. So the problem with these XT boards is that these orange tantalum caps here, they go bang. This cap here has a tiny black dot on top of it. Sometimes that's the sign of a shorted tantalum. They don't always go out with a big bang. Sometimes they just make a tiny hole like this and blow out the magic smoke through that tiny hole. So I think that's what happened here. That's why this board doesn't post. Before we get started, I'm going to tape down a thermocoupler labeled B to this side of the PCB using some Kapton tape. The metal sleeving on the thermocoupler is very rigid, so it doesn't want to stay on. I'm gonna have to secure it with some more Kapton tape. Okay, hopefully that will stay on. Then I'm going to tape down the thermocoupler C on this side of the PCB. I have also marked all the tantalums on this side of the PCB. Okay, let's turn it on. I've read through the manual and it has 3 different modes. Type 0 just sets a temperature. Type 1 here will slowly rise to a set temperature. And type 2 will slowly rise the temperature and then slowly lower it down again. I'm gonna go with type 1 and select. That fan inside makes an incredibly annoying noise. I'm gonna have to replace it, but not today. Up until now I have been using a really cheap heat gun to preheat the board. And that has worked out quite well for me, but it's very time consuming and very annoying. But that has also taught me that we don't need to go very high in temperature to fix one of these boards. So I'm gonna set it to 90 degrees Celsius. And then I think we should press set. And it's showing the temperature we have on probe B, which sits underneath the board. We can also scroll down, and here we can see the temperature underneath the board and on top of the board. For some reason it went to 100, so I must have made a mistake. So let's start over. I'll go to type 1, select, and it's set to 90 degrees. Let's try set again. Okay, it's now showing that the temperature on the board is 110 degrees Celsius. And it keeps rising. Yeah, that's a bit too much. That's kind of strange, because it's set to 90, but it measures 116. Well, now it's at 85 on top of the board and 116 underneath the board. I'm gonna let it sit like this for a little while and see what happens. It's definitely getting toasty. Oh, maybe that's the minimum temperature. Let me check. No, it should be able to do 50. So I'm not sure why it's doing this, but at least it's reasonably stable at around 115 degrees. Okay, now it's going down to 111. So it is controlling the temperature, but it's about 20 degrees Celsius off from the temperature I have set. Okay, it's been about 30 more seconds and it keeps lowering the temperature. So it did overshoot, but now I think it's climbing down to the set value. Yeah, it's definitely climbing down. So now we are at 100. Okay, the preheater is now down to 94. So the temperature control is definitely working. So let's have a go with the desoldering gun. Set to 380. Yeah, this is totally working. That solder melts immediately. Yeah, that went perfectly. Let's have a go at one of the caps in the middle of the board. Yeah, that solder is melting immediately. But these two pads here still have some solder left. So maybe we need some more heat. Okay, I raised the temperature to 110 C at the board. Let's try with this cap here. Okay, that worked. How about these pads? Yep. And the third pad. No, still some solder left in that pad. Okay, I raised the temperature on the desoldering gun to 390. Yep. No, still some solder left in one of the through holes. Okay, I changed the temperature to 150. So let's try with this cap here. Yep, that went okay. And that through hole too. What about this last one? So this is probably the temperature we need. Let's try another one. No, still some solder left in one of the through holes. Okay, let's try with the desoldering gun set to 400. That's a bit high. I'll try to avoid temperature this high. Yeah, that worked perfectly. So let's try another one. No, that one was really stubborn. Still some solder left in one of the through holes. And here's the reason why this isn't working. This thermocoupler here has come off, so it wasn't measuring the actual board. This kind of sucks. Okay, this is what I came up with. I taped the thermocoupler to this rod here, and then pushed it through this hole here, and finally taped it down to the board. So this should be quite a bit more sturdy. Let's give this a try. The controller seems to be working just fine though. It's raising the temperature by 1 degree every other second or so. Okay, we are back at 150. Let's try again. These boards, by the way, have a huge ground plane, so that's why they are so stubborn. Yeah, that one worked. Let's try another one here. Well, I think this stand needs some rubber feet, because it's moving around quite a bit as I desolder these caps. No, that pad still has some solder left. I grabbed some generic 3M rubber feet and installed underneath these bolts. So now the stand doesn't move around. I also increased the temperature to 180. Now let's see if this is enough for that huge ground plane inside this board. Yeah, that one worked. And this pad too. How about the last one? Yeah, that totally worked. So how about this cap in the middle of the board? Yep, that pad went okay. This one too. And the last one went okay too. Okay, so apparently we need to set the board to 180 degrees. You better grab this solder ball so it doesn't short something on the board later. Okay, all the nasty little tantalums are off the board. I desoldered the remaining caps off camera, and they all had annoying little bent legs. But now they're off the board. The original tantalums have 3 legs, but I'm going to replace them with 2-legged tantalums. And that's okay, as long as we put the positive lead in the middle hole. When I decided to buy one of these, I actually had a different preheater in mind. I was looking at the T8280. Then I remembered that another YouTuber, Tony359, bought one a while back and made a video. So I sent him an email and asked him if he was still happy with it. And he was. But I also mentioned the preheater I eventually bought. And so far I think I made the right choice. I can't really recommend it at this point, since it came all skewed and since it had some loose screws. But to me those are not big issues. I can probably straighten up that chassis too. All caps are installed and soldered. Now let's replace U26. I found this chip on eBay. We had to snatch it because we needed one when we repaired the PC Junior. This guy here was bad. This is quite a coincidence. The dates on this chip actually matches pretty good with all the other chips on this board. Okay, keyboard and display connected. Speaker, hard drive and a power supply. Still with those refas installed. Fingers crossed. Let's see if it works. Okay, well the screen went black and it posts. So nothing new, just a bad tantalum, as it so often is with these boards. And the chip from eBay seems to be working too. Let's see if it will boot from the hard drive. Well, LED flashes, and yes, it boots from the hard drive. Awesome. Well, thank God for eBay. Without that chip from 1984, this machine would have been scrap. Well, the floppy drive in this machine actually isn't broken, but they very often are. So let's fix one of these. Let me show you what typically happens with these. I'll remove the front panel so it will be easier for you to see. Like so. So the door slides into these two rails here. And when it's closed like this, it pushes on this arm here. I have already removed the broken piece. And it's this hinge here. The hinge also has these two tiny white plastic tabs that sits in these holes here. Now the problem is this part here isn't quite up to the task. It's a bit too fragile. So as you can see on this side here, this piece here is broken off. I still have the piece and I tried to glue it back on, but it didn't work. It's not strong enough. So then I went ahead and measured these tabs, and they are 2.4 millimeters. I went on eBay and I found these acrylic rods. According to the listing, they should be 2.4 millimeters too. They're not quite, they're actually 2.5. So that might be a problem. That's a bummer. The listing clearly said 2.4. I guess these are not high precision. So let's measure a few. This one is 2.47, 2.5, 2.47, 2.56, 2.55. Okay, so I guess the listing should have said roughly 2.4 millimeters, not 2.4. Okay, this one is the thinnest. I cut one piece to size, and it's now the same width as the door. Now let's see if it fits in these holes on the lid. Well, they do, but that is a really tight fit. That kind of sucks. I was hoping they would fit perfectly. Well, how about if we take some sandpaper. I'll see if I can sand it down to 2.4 millimeters. No, that wasn't enough. So let's grab some power tools. 2.42. Let's see if that's enough. Yes, I think it is. Let's do the same thing with the other side. Yeah, now it totally fits inside the door. So here's what I'm thinking. Instead of trying to repair this part here, how about if we just glue it to our new acrylic rod? I think this could work. Let's give this a try. Okay, I ended up gluing it off camera, not to make a bloody mess. And as far as I can tell, I think this is working, but let's find out. So the hinge sits on top here, and then it has this bracket on top and 2 screws. It may need some adjustment, so I'll leave it loose like this and then install the front panel. Let's put these screws back on underneath the drive. Okay, let's see if this works. Yeah, I think this is working, but the door is loose, so I'll tighten up these 2 screws with the front panel installed. Okay, let's try again. Yeah, this is totally working. So there you have it. This is how to fix one of these early IBM drives. Awesome! Well, now that we have a preheater, we can take on the epic 8-bit VP6 board. If you're watching this sometime in the future, I'll put a link on the screen shortly to that video. If you're watching this fresh, hit the bell icon below and set it to all. Meanwhile, check out the first video about this VP6 and the year 2000 dream build. I'll end by saying thank you to my patrons. I appreciate your support. If you want to support me too, consider becoming a patron. Patrons get ad-free early access. If you like this video, let me know with a thumbs up in the comments. If you're a regular viewer, consider subscribing to this channel. Thank you for watching, I'll see you next week.